Well, joining me from Bali is Sky News Political Editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew Clennell, that was a very mild opening from Anthony Albanese. He said he wasn't going to resolve from whatever it was that divided us. He didn't say what it was, but was stressing friendship. And President Xi, in his turn, was smiling and beaming and playing nice. What is Anthony Albanese, once the doors are closed, planning to say? Do you know that?
Well, I do not, but I would say that's where it gets more nitty and gritty. And I thought there was enough, that it was meaty enough in terms of that opening remarks. You know, the Chinese are about face. He spoke about peace in the Indo-Pacific. He spoke about upholding international law, which is all about South China Sea, the Indo-Pacific. If you read between the lines, it's all about Russia and Ukraine. But then, and he spoke about supply chain shocks. A lot of that, of course, is to do with China's zero COVID policy. So there was enough there to suggest, look, you know, you need to behave in a different way. I would expect that to progress behind closed doors. I would expect some assurances perhaps on Taiwan. Certainly that China will do more when it comes to climate change, given they're the biggest emitter. And on the imprisoned Australians, on cybersecurity, on foreign interference, the whole box and dice. We really won't know. We might never know, but the best we'll be able to get is an Anthony Albanese press conference, which is probably in an hour and a bit's time after this meeting is concluded, that we'll be attending, Andrew. And it does make me wonder. I mean, you saw when the Chinese Premier spoke to Anthony Albanese at that dinner in Cambodia the other night, this mention of the 50-year anniversary of Gough Whitlam visiting China and re-establishing relations with Australia was mentioned then. It was mentioned in that opening address. One wonders if that isn't the hook that Anthony Albanese and his government has used to get this bilateral meeting. We know Canada's not getting one at this G20. We know China is meeting Japan, their old adversary, the US and Australia.
Well, that raises the question, Andrew. Do we know why China finally agreed to a meeting after 6 years of saying no, no, no? First to Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, no to Prime Minister Scott Morrison, and now finally, bang, we've got this meeting. Do we know how it occurred, that it actually happened in the first place?
Look, I don't. I know Penny Wong spoke on their foreign minister. I know that upon his election, the Chinese Premier wrote to Albanese and he wrote back. I know that Scott Morrison pretty much accused Labor Party people of Manchurian candidates without going in with other countries, called for an independent inquiry into COVID and used every domestic political opportunity he could find to say China was this massive threat and Labor were going to be soft on China. So I'd say with that in the background, it was a lot easier for Albanese's government to request a bilateral meeting than it would have ever been for Morrison had he been re-elected. Having said that, which is a point you're sort of making, it then becomes about what you do with that relationship, how you get the trade sanctions lifted, how you get Australians released from prison, stop getting Australian journalists kicked out of China, stop foreign interference. There are all these issues, and you don't think diplomacy will be enough, but it's better than nothing. And it seems to me with the Joe Biden meeting and this meeting, it's about trade, it's about all these other niggles, and they're more than niggles, of course, they affect people's lives, but most of all, it's about preventing war, and a very serious war, Andrew.
That is absolutely true. You mentioned also the the meeting last night between President Xi and US President Joe Biden. Joe Biden, for the first time since Biden was elected, first face-to-face meeting. They talked for 3 hours. Biden emerged declaring there would be peace in our time. Here he is.
Met many times with Xi Jinping, and we were candid and clear with one another across the board. And I do not think there's any imminent attempt on the part of China to invade Taiwan. And I made it clear that our policy on Taiwan has not changed at all.
What else came out of that meeting, Andrew?
Well, there was an agreement from Joe Biden and President Xi that they would condemn any use of nuclear weapons in the Ukraine conflict. And I guess that's important in deterring Vladimir Putin from such a drastic and horrible action, in the sense that he knows that China won't be with him if he takes that course of action. So I thought that was a significant development. China's been very much with Russia for a lot of that conflict. It's one of the reasons why we won't see agreement at the G20 in terms of a communique and condemnation of the Ukraine war. But other than that, it seems Joe Biden says no imminent threat from war over Taiwan, and he's saying won't even be a Cold War. So he believes he can keep these talks going. We know over the pandemic he's had video conversations with President Xi. We know in that time, Biden's reported back that President Xi's made no secret of the fact that he wants to be the world's most dominant superpower in China. He's adopting a more conciliatory tone on this occasion. Whether or not he can be believed on that, well, we'll know over the next few years, won't we?
Yes, I think you've hit on something. The more conciliatory tone to Australia, more conciliatory tone to the US. I think something else is going on, and it is centred on China. I'll discuss that in a second with my next guest. But Andrew Clennell, thank you so much. And if the meeting wraps up in the next hour, I hope you'll be able to come on the show and just give us the gist of what you've picked up. Thank you so much indeed for your time.